Coffee Monday is more than a podcast. It's a movement to reshape the way we approach Mondays and the week ahead. It's about embracing the reality that work doesn't have to dominate our lives. It's about finding that sweet spot where passion, purpose, and a cup of motivation connect. Filmed and recorded in California's Central Valley, join me, your host, Rae Matson, as I invite thriving professionals to share their stories of how they're crafting a life that's both vibrant and balanced.
We're just diving in, but I feel like we should take it back a little bit. So Annie, I'm so happy you're here.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
So happy to be here.
Just
this is
two
fun.
gals chatting over coffee.
I
Cheers.
love coffee on a Monday morning.
Right?
Yes.
Okay, so tell me, what is your coffee order?
I am a latte girl. I love a little sweet, not too much. So always half sweet. Today's vanilla.
Love it.
Really open to
Have
most
you
flavors.
done any of the holiday pumpkin spice or peppermint or any of that?
No, I love peppermint. I've never really been into pumpkin.
Yeah.
Orange is not my color. I just stay away from it altogether.
Stay away from it altogether.
Yes, I do.
I've never had a pumpkin spice latte.
That does not seem right for you.
Right?
You gotta.
I
change
just,
that.
when I go to get coffee, I just like what I like. I want what I want.
Yeah, I know.
And you don't want to experiment if you're craving something,
That's true.
at least for me.
I'd like to challenge you to something.
You should. Okay.
Your next podcast that you do.
Let's
I
hear
know
it.
you get coffee. You're going to get a pumpkin spice latte.
Oh,
because
Lord.
we all want to hear how you feel
Oh,
about
I
it.
like it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
You are the coffee girl. You
know.
have to be well
I
versed.
feel like I've tried a lot of coffee, but the same pumpkin thing, or either a peppermint hot chocolate. But I don't think I've ever gotten peppermint in my coffee,
Yeah.
unless it's an espresso martini with a candy cane. Then we're talking a whole different scenario.
Yeah. I actually, besides Dutch Bros, which is obviously amazing, I am very much a give me my coffee at home Keurig, the most boring.
I love that for you.
Yeah.
That's so great.
Yeah, my husband brings home coffee every morning on his way home from Cycle Bar, and he stopped asking because I'm like, no, I'm good.
You're
I
comfortable
don't
at
need
home.
anything. I want what I
It's
like.
really sweet of him to bring you home coffee. Isn't that the best?
He's the best.
He
Mostly.
is the best. I
90,
know.
90%.
90% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that way about Michael. Gosh, he's just very hands-on.
Yeah,
So lucky. I feel like Brian's that way.
yeah. He's pretty hands on. He's busy. He's crazy. He's all over the place all the time.
Yeah.
Never stops.
Yeah.
So
And it's
he's
just
all in
that
at home. He's
season
all in
of
at
life,
work. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, Annie, let's take it back.
Okay.
Okay.
All
I
right.
don't even remember when we first met through mutual friends.
I know.
I'm so bad at that.
Me too.
But we've known each other for years.
Yep.
And I remember when I moved back to Fresno, born and raised here, went to high school here, came back, everyone said we should reconnect. We should connect. We have a lot in common. We share similar values, all the things. So at some point we reconnected.
Yeah.
And I would love to share your story and your background of whatever you feel like sharing. Let's start there. And then we'll kind of dive into different pieces of that.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. So I was born and raised in Fresno. Good old Fresno girl. Let's see. When I was I think a big part of my story and why I am where I am today
Yeah.
is based on kind of my childhood and how I grew up. So when I was 2, my parents split up, and by the time I was 5, they had both gotten remarried. So that was, starting at 2 years old, I started bouncing back and forth.
Yeah.
Which is common, but hard, right?
Mm-hmm.
They started to build their own families. My mom met my stepdad, who she's still married to. My dad met my stepmom, who he's still married to.
Aw.
So my stepparents have been also my parents since I was very young. They've been a part of my life. But I really did have this experience of, I lived mostly with my mom and then went to my dad's, every Wednesday, every other weekend, kind of going back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
But I think at that point, it was when I started I learned how to become who I needed to be based on where I was at. Okay, so I
Wow.
started putting on these masks already as a kid. And this is stuff I figured out like way later
I was
in
going to
therapy.
say, this feels
I didn't-
very like
advanced.
Yes.
Yes. So
Didn't know it at the time, but
I
now you
did
do.
not know
Yeah.
that at the time. But yes, that's what I've just kind of discovered more recently is that I figured out. And so I kind of joke with my husband. He was like ASB president and so many amazing things. And I was really more of kind of a failure to launch kid. Okay. So I really struggled emotionally. I really struggled academically. Graduated high school by the grace of God. Like I just did not, it was not my priority.
Yeah,
Like
fair.
academics, I just was not that into it. And, I didn't have the grades to go to a traditional university. So I really wanted to move out of town.
Yeah.
So I went to Santa Barbara City College.
Oh,
Have
fun.
you ever been there?
I haven't, but I isn't that crazy? I've never actually like gone to visit at the school, even though that was like one of my top choices was UCSB.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a lot of people start at Santa Barbara City.
They do.
To be able to go to UCSB or
Right.
pretty much just obviously live the dream.
Live the dream.
Yeah.
Well, so the ocean was like you could look out of your classroom.
Yeah,
and
no,
see the water.
I'm familiar with where it is. Yeah, it's
So
unreal.
I went to class for like 20 minutes.
Yeah, right.
Period.
Right?
I never went.
Like in total.
In total.
Oh
So
man.
it didn't take long before my parents were like, you gotta figure it out. You gotta
funny.
come home.
Yeah.
So I was like, no, wait. I'm not ready to come home yet. I know I'm gonna be an artist.
Ooh. Okay.
I'm like very right-brained and I'm creative.
You are.
So I applied at the Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising,
Amazing.
got an interview, got accepted, and started school there.
Stop. You went to FIT'em?
I did.
What?
For again, like 20 minutes. I was living in Los Angeles and
Downtown or where?
Yeah, downtown.
What?
Actually, well, I was going to the campus downtown. I was living, one of my girlfriends was going to Santa Monica City College.
Yeah.
So I was sleeping on her couch.
Yeah.
Which
love
was
it.
not really a very good plan long term.
But I mean, you were just filling it out, right?
I was, yeah. But
That's the age and the time to do it, I feel.
I think so. Yeah. It was just very short lived
Mm-hmm.
because I just felt lost.
Yeah, fair.
So this, I think, was about the time in my life where I was like, oh, I'm not quite as resilient as everyone around me. I just couldn't quite figure it out. Obviously, I got there eventually.
Yes.
Right? So we can talk more about what
Clearly.
I did well.
Yeah.
But that was kind of my start. It was a rough start, and it was one that I had to really kind of fall flat on my face several times and not nail it before I realized what I wanted to do.
The other thing too is I feel like there's so much pressure on somebody in high school to make a decision on what they want to be when they grow up, aka their major in school, aka what schools they even want to go to. I mean, what a joke looking back at where we were in our lives, even when we graduated college. The pressure to, if you do a 4-year, the pressure to like go into your career right away.
Right. I didn't know.
And I feel like
I wanted
I'm
to
the
do.
strongest believer in you don't know until you try.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had high hopes of being this like editor of a magazine,
Yeah.
thinking it was like so cliche, going to LA, the whole thing. And I did many internships in the publication, and I was like, yeah, no, I don't care who does Jennifer Aniston's hair and what drink Lindsay Lohan sips on, and you know who's dating who.
Yeah.
I didn't care.
It didn't.
It
You weren't passionate about that,
No.
and you figured that out.
And I figured it out. And the people that were high up editors in the magazines that I worked for were like 50, 60 something going to Jennifer Aniston's house and following Lindsay Lohan to the club. And it's like, wow.
I don't know
No,
if that might be
thanks.
kind of fun though.
I actually did that.
That would be fun.
So in college, I worked for People magazine as a reporter. And a few summers I did Club Watch. And my sister Alicia came and lived with me. It was the best time.
Probably the best time of your life.
And I had like a friend who was a promoter, and every night was a different club because every night, like Wednesdays was Crown Bar, Thursdays was Teddy's. Like each night had its own thing. And I would get paid to go to the club and spy on celebrities and then write a file about it that night.
Wow.
And then I like got a lot of my stories
I'm sure.
published.
Yeah.
Literally spying. That was the way at the time.
That's crazy.
I don't know if they still do that.
Probably.
It was
How
a
else do you do it?
You have inside sources at the club
Oh, yeah.
that work there, so you don't have to physically be there.
Smart. That's a better approach.
Anyway, we digress. How did we even get talking about
I
that?
don't know. College?
Oh, just like the fact that you're too young to be.
Oh, to know what you want.
understanding. Yes.
To know where you want to go.
So you're in Santa Monica, sleeping on your friend's couch, going to fit him.
Yes.
How long did you actually go to fit him for?
Like 3 months.
Okay,
Like I
that's
bought
not 20 minutes.
I bought all the materials.
Great.
And started, yeah. And then,
Great. And
yeah,
then,
and
so
then
how'd you know that wasn't the fit?
it was just it was really a consistency thing about going to class, showing up. Really? This is, yeah.
I love it.
Anyway, so then my parents said, it's time to come home. I came home. I went to Fresno City. It took me a very long time to get it together there as well. But finally, I did. And once I got to Fresno State,
And then you went to Fresno
I
State.
went to Fresno State and I started as a
Amazing.
communications major.
Love it.
All of these things, all of these big dreams, none of them involving what I'm doing
What you're
now.
doing now.
Yeah. So I started as a communications major my first day of class. I remember going to the Manhattan for dinner with my mom, and I was like, Mom, it's just not sitting right. And she's like, again? Are you kidding? She said, I think you should be a social worker. And my mom's a social worker.
I have chills, but like, how did she just come out the blue with that?
Well, because she's one.
Okay.
So she,
Okay, so
yeah.
in the fam.
So,
Okay.
yeah, family business,
Yes.
basically.
Yes.
So she said, I think you should be a social worker. And I said, but Mom, I've been fighting my whole life not to turn into you. And she was like, well, now's the time. There you go.
Now's the time.
So I did. I started the social work program, and that was really
So you
where
were interested in it, clearly.
I was, yeah. I really found my footing quickly.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what do you think made you resist it for so long? Like jokingly, but not jokingly. You're not.
Right. That's a good question.
Maybe to like find your own identity. I don't know.
yeah, I
you
think
know,
it
like anything, no
was.
matter what your parent does. You want to do your own thing.
Yeah. I did. And I still, like you said a few minutes ago, I was just young. And I just didn't know who I was.
Fair.
And I don't think I was ready to figure it out until I knew.
Until you did. Okay. So what's the path to become a social worker? So you're going to Fresno State.
Yes.
You're in the comm school. And then you decide you want to go the path of a social worker. What does that entail? Are you still continuing school and communications, doing something else?
No, social work has its own program.
It does,
So
okay.
I walked right in there the next morning and I said, hey, I really want to transfer in.
Yeah.
It was a pretty impacted program, but somehow it worked. I don't remember even how I did it, but
Amazing.
I transferred in.
Changed your major.
Yeah, changed my major. And maybe that was why, because I was already at Fresno State. And then I got to change in. Yeah.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah, so I started the social work program. And I wasn't sure at that point. I knew that I wanted to work with people who needed help. I knew I wanted to help people. I really thought I wanted to work in a hospital setting, which I did do for a while as a medical social worker.
Wow. What does that entail? What do you mean a medical social worker?
So I worked at Children's Hospital. So yeah, so
like
I was,
child life? No.
No, different. Yeah, child life is fun.
Yeah.
Social work's fun too.
Yeah,
Child
but
life
I
is
hear what
fun,
you're
and I
saying,
know
yeah.
that because like being in the hospital with my son Connor, the child life specialist was comes in with all the fun and the excitement and the
things.
games and
yes. I see.
But yeah, so social work in that setting, there was a lot, and I was a per diem social worker, so I worked nights and weekends. And, one shift I'd be in the ER, then I'd be in the ICU, then I'd be covering an acute care floor. So you kind of just got pulled wherever the needs were. If there was a crisis happening and family needed support, if there was, a family stranded at the hospital that couldn't get home and you needed to go help them kind of like you were kind of a gatekeeper to the resources. Like, how do we get you fed? How do we get you home? How do we make sure you're safe? You know, you were the first one they call if there's any suspicion of child abuse. They call the social worker.
Oh, wow.
So you come in, kind of assess, write the report. So that was a lot of what would happen in getting called in the middle of the night was child abuse stuff, and that was hard.
I mean, I dealt a lot with that at Marjorie Mason Center.
Yeah.
And even in my role, I wasn't directly communicating with the clients, we called them. But it was so emotionally taxing. How, this is like a loaded question, and there may not be one answer, but like in your line of work, how do you stay mentally and mentally like strong and okay? You know what I'm saying? I would cry literally every week at work. And because I just, you just have compassion for these people.
It's hard. And I used to cry a lot more than I did. You start to build up some of the skills that you need in order to compartmentalize a little bit and to kind of move through the process of, but I'm in my own therapy, have to be.
I would think
to kind of work out some of that stuff. I also have like lots of professional consultants and colleagues that I talk to that I can bounce things off of because it can be kind of overwhelming.
I would think so.
Yeah.
I would think so. I would think so. Wow. Yeah. So you were at Valley Children's for how long?
Oh,
like years.
A couple of years.
Okay.
A couple of years. Yeah. And then I had this small stint at the Fresno Historical Society.
What?
Where I was in charge of Civil War Revisited with
Stop it.
my friend Andrea. Yes.
I'm dead. Busy cleaner?
Yes. I was like her assistant, basically. I was a terrible assistant.
This is amazing. I did not know you guys did that.
And then I got a job, my first therapist job. So this was like after I had my master's that I went to go be an event planner because I was still clearly a little bit lost.
Yeah. You needed a little dab, a little taste before you dove right in.
Exactly. So I got my first job as a therapist in a Medi-Cal clinic. It was for the county, and we saw all the kids in foster care. Like 90% of our caseload were kids who had been removed from their homes for abuse of some sort or another. And so that's what I did. Was I saw kids in the foster care system, and it was a lot. It was like 10 hours, 4 days. That was my schedule, and I would see 8 or 9 clients in a day, kind of back to back to back. So. But so it was really hard. It was really, it was very emotional, but that's where I learned how to be a therapist. And I had the best supervisors there. And I kind of felt like if I can get through this, I can work with anyone. You know, if I can learn how to do this here, it was the best training ground that I could have ever asked for because I was faced with so much. And learned from so many like really smart people. Amazing.
Yeah. And so where do you go from there? You loved your work. You loved your supervisors. You felt fulfilled. You were getting great experience.
Yeah. Then Brian and I got married, and I decided to start a private practice.
Okay.
So I had gotten licensed. I got licensed when I was like 7 months pregnant with my first child.
I love it.
Yeah, in fact, it was winter, and I walked in to take the test, and they were like, "Oh, you can't wear that sweater. It has a pocket. That's against the state board laws." I was like, "Well, what do you want me to do?" They're like, "Take it off." So I had to
take off your sweater when you're 7 months pregnant.
When I was 7 months pregnant, and I just took in this little tank top that I had underneath and just did that whole test. I was like, anyway, but I passed. That was exciting.
Yeah.
And started a private practice.
Amazing.
And that's what I'm still doing. So I see adults and couples now. I moved on from seeing kids, and now I see adults and couples. And
what was the thought there? Or did it just happen? You know what I mean? Naturally, as far as girls and stuff.
It happened naturally. I knew that I liked to work with people on a more intellectual level than a play level. And so it felt better for me to work with adults. Like, I remember even in my first years working, I always liked the family sessions better, working with the foster parents and trying to help teach them how to connect with the kiddos.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you felt more drawn to that side. And
I really did.
Yeah. Amazing.
And I love working with couples. It's so fun.
So couples therapy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
But I do EMDR. And
so for those that don't know what that is,
yes.
EMDR, what does that stand for?
EMDR is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, which is essentially it helps to integrate both sides of your brain to help take the disturbance out of traumatic memories. So I love this analogy. If you think of your mind as like a library filled with books on the shelf, right? But there's this book that's open and stuck open on a really scary page. Okay. And you're like hanging out in the library and you're trying to read some other stuff that's like good or funny but all you can see is this big scary thing.
Yeah.
So it kind of helps to file that book, put it back in its place. It doesn't erase it from your, it's still part of your story. It doesn't erase it from your memory, but it helps to take the disturbance out of traumatic events and experiences. It's fascinating. And it does that through, they're like guided eye movements. Some people use tapping. Some people use a light bar. So anything with bilateral stimulation where you're crossing the midline of your body.
Wow. Fascinated.
Yeah, it is wild.
Do you like practice that often with your?
Yeah. Wow. I do a lot. And more now than I used to. I've been doing it. I think I started training in it about 5 years ago. But yeah, I'm doing it more now, and the results are incredible. They're incredible.
That's amazing. So when working with couples and adults, I imagine parenting for those that have children are at the top of the list with things they discuss with you.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, so what prompted you coming on the podcast, amongst many pieces of your story, which I'm very excited to share, is Annie gave a talk at the Central California Women's Conference recently. We were both speakers. We were pumping each other up because we were both nervous. I was so nervous, and you were so great. I leaned on you so much. Yeah. And she packed the house. Literally, people got turned away, which is a great problem to have.
Yeah.
And the topic of your speech was how to raise emotionally resilient children, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So I feel like there are so many questions that I have, but I think I'd want to more lean on you on, can we kind of start with, I guess, how you got into this work specifically, which I think we're kind of getting there, right, in your career path. And
finally.
No.
We're finally getting there.
Everybody has such a windy path. I love hearing your story.
Windy path. Yeah.
Because like mine is windy too, and I feel like everything happens as it should. It leads you to where you are. You learn what you don't want to do or what you do want to do, or you meet somebody along the way that will eventually come back around. Like, I strongly feel it's all part of the plan, right?
Yep, absolutely.
So anyway, we're kind of getting there, right? So talk to me about how you kind of start to focus more on this work and obviously becoming a speaker at the Women's Conference.
With flannel in mind and dreams of all things pumpkin and fall, Dutch Bros is cozying up with their new fall drinks. Fall's bestie, the caramel pumpkin brulee, returns and helps give us a warm welcome to their 3 new seasonal flavors: the caramel pumpkin brulee breve, the cookie butter latte, and the caramel apple rebel. All of these delicious fall treats are available now through October 31st. So don't miss your opportunity to manifest fall and cooler weather in the valley with these seasonal drinks at Dutch Bros. The San Joaquin Flower Collective's Wednesday pop-ups are back. Join them every Wednesday from 9 to 11 a.m. at Sanctuary Coffee to enjoy a fresh cup of coffee, local flowers, and a delightful community experience. The beautiful floral centerpiece you see on our shows is styled by the incredibly talented Darcy Hovsepian of DH Floral, featuring flowers that are grown and sourced from local flower farmers in our Central Valley. This is made possible thanks to the San Joaquin Flower Collective, the first and only source for 100% locally grown flowers in the valley. Their mission? To reduce the need for imported flowers by providing an easy online ordering experience and fostering collaboration amongst flower growers and enthusiasts. Plus, their weekly flower pop-ups are the perfect place to pick up some stunning farm-grown blooms every Wednesday from 9 to 11. Whether you're a wholesaler, retailer, or simply a flower lover, follow along on Instagram at SJ Flower Collective for the latest updates and info on their fresh bloom pop-ups.
Yeah. So resilience specifically, I talked a little earlier about how I discovered in my own therapy that I really struggled with it, and I wanted to figure out how to be better at it, right? And then obviously in my work with my clients, and so many people come to me with trauma because something bad has happened to them. Mm-hmm. But also, a lot of people go to therapy because of things that didn't happen, right? Mm-hmm. Things that they missed out on. Mm-hmm. And sometimes when we miss out on a lot of those things and those skills and those moments within the context of our attachment relationship with our parents, that we don't always learn the type of resilience that we really need to be successful as an adult. And when I say successful, I really look at that as, can I cope with stress? Can I navigate challenges? Can I adapt to change? And do I have healthy and positive relationships?
Love that. Don't we all want those things?
Yes.
Right?
Those are so important to me.
So important.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so I got to a place where I was like, okay, this is the goal.
Yeah.
How do I work backwards and figure out, do all the research, read all the amazing things that so many brilliant people have come up with and written books about and, talk about on social media or, whatever platforms they use, and just start to really compile this information in order to help bring this to people in a way that's really manageable.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Love that.
Yeah.
So did you already have this talk drafted, or what was your thought on I want to present this at the women's conference?
No. So a friend of mine actually
approached you, and then you were like,
approached me to say, really I think you should apply.
Didn't you say this was the first speech at the conference that spoke about mental health or something?
Yeah. As far as I know, they had not had a mental health professional before.
Shook.
I mean, don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure that was, and they wanted to start introducing some more because it's really important. Mm-hmm. So she said, I think you should apply. And I said, absolutely not. I'm not doing that. And then I slept on it for a couple of days, and I was like, you know what? Okay. Yeah, I will.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you got accepted, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And can we dive into, or however you want to do this? There were 4 principles that you touched on. Mm-hmm. And I was so grateful to be able to listen to this talk. And again, I feel like I'm trying to practice these things in my daily. And they're just really great principles that I'm really excited for you to share.
Yeah.
So how do you want to intro those 4 pieces?
Yeah, let's just start from the beginning. Great. So I think that so the 4 things that are really important for emotional resilience in our kids, in raising our kids, are empathy, validation, boundaries, and repair. So let's start with empathy and validation, if we can, and talk about why that's so important. Right. This is when we give that to our kids, this is what helps our kids to feel like they are seen, heard, valued. So we do so much of just knock it off. Come on.
Right, blow it off.
Stop. Dismissing. Minimizing. Get it together. Stop crying. Everything's going to be fine. Which sometimes works in the moment to get whatever's happening
Like,
for
lock
them
it up.
to
Yeah.
stop. Like,
Yeah.
we don't have time for this right now.
Mm-hmm.
But when that happens consistently, our kids start to feel like, what's wrong with me that I feel this way?
Mm-hmm.
I'm having this feeling and mom keeps telling me to stop. What's wrong with me?
Yes.
That I feel sad or that I feel angry or that I feel whatever.
Right. Right.
So when we can come in and offer our kids empathy and validation for what they're feeling, it really helps to make their experience feel really manageable. They can they start to learn like, oh, I have this emotion. It's really big, but it's temporary.
Right.
This is not forever.
Right.
I can get through this.
Right.
And that is one of the skills of building resilience is knowing that it's not going to last forever.
And recognizing it sounds like, right? Instead of, I would think dismissing an emotion would just like be very unhealthy.
Yeah,
right? Like just brushing under the rug. That just doesn't feel like that's going to end well.
It doesn't. And that emotional energy really gets trapped in your body.
Yeah, I believe that so wholeheartedly that our emotions are drivers of our physical health.
They are.
I so believe that.
And there's a lot of research right now showing that there's a lot of physical things that come out when you don't process your emotions.
I mean, think about, not to get like wah-wah, but like think about what stress does to somebody's body. There's a reason why highly powered, highly stressful executives pass away at a young age because they're literally running their bodies.
They have cardiac disease and high blood pressure, and we see a lot of that.
Yes, I bet.
Because they're not closing the stress cycles and they're not managing or allowing the emotions to process.
So acknowledging empathy and validation, acknowledging the emotion, meeting the child where they are. So let me ask you this. You know, there's the whole like terrible twos, three-nager, all of that.
Yeah.
Which we're all living. Some
living.
version
It's
of
so
that.
hard.
Right?
Yes.
But I had this moment recently where I'm like, I think I know why my child's so frustrated with me. And this is like not deep at all. And you're probably going to be like, wow, Rae. But like, they've been told yes for everything up until they're not. Right? Like a baby, think about it. A baby cries, you figure out what's wrong, and you remedy the situation.
Yeah.
Until they get a little bit older. And then it's like all of a sudden they're told, wait, no, I can't have that.
What do you mean?
What do you mean? You've been giving me everything I want, fulfilling all of my needs until now. Like, what's up with that?
Right.
So it's like frustration, probably, right? Like many things. But anyway.
And that's where the boundaries are starting to come in.
Age-wise, is there like like for what we're discussing?
Yeah.
The practice of doing these things. Is there an age where it's like, okay, yeah, like that doesn't apply to, let's say, 2 and under, or you know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah. We don't set a lot of boundaries with our 6-week-old babies. Right?
Exactly. Right.
But absolutely. And so this is in these early stages of life, as we start to say, no, that's not safe. No, you can't have that.
Yeah.
No, this is, as we start to implement those boundaries to help our kids learn what behavior is acceptable and what behavior is not.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're gonna melt down a little bit because they're like, "What is happening?"
Yes. Yeah. So you feel like the empathy and the validation kind of go hand in hand.
The empathy and the validation do very much go hand in hand, but if you just do that all day long, if you just focus on empathizing and validating, you get real bulldozed by your kids.
100%.
They have to have the structure and the boundaries, because not only does that teach them about what's okay and what's not okay, it helps train them to begin setting their own boundaries, both internally for themselves and within their relationships with other people.
So let me give you an example, and you tell me how you would handle it.
Okay.
We're at a park play date, and we tell our child that we need to leave.
Yeah.
The meltdown ensues.
Yeah.
Yelling, screaming, whatever that may be. Just upset that they have to leave the situation. the first response in my mind would be like, I guess I should have maybe given them a warning, right? So like talk through like how should a parent handle that situation when any sort of meltdown, in this case I'm giving a park play date, like do you stop them in your tracks and you validate that feeling? Or let's go through that.
Yeah, I mean, I think absolutely. And that's something that we are all so busy all the time. So many of us as moms are just in survival mode. We're overcommitted. We're
stimulated.
Yeah, our days are Tetris games because we have 7,000 things going on.
Yes.
But so when we're not able to really kind of be thoughtful in how we approach transitions for our kid, right? They're at the park, they're having fun, they don't want to leave, but that is a transition that we need to help prepare them for. So if we're able to do that, yes, it's wonderful to give a warning. Sometimes we can't. We get a phone call, we got to go, it's time to leave.
Yeah, good point.
So there's a tantrum, there's a meltdown. Okay, I understand you're angry. I know you don't want to leave, but it's time to go. Would you like to walk or would you like me to carry you? Those are your choices.
This is dragging them.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And sometimes the carrying looks like dragging, right?
Yeah, which I've been there, I'm not gonna lie. So then that happens. Then they potentially either are okay with it or they continue to have a meltdown and then...
They're probably going to continue having the meltdown. They're probably not going to be like, okay, Mom, you're right.
You're right.
I think I'm going to walk today. This is going to be really fun. But what's important for us as moms is to remember our job, we want them to be able to feel their feelings.
Yes. Yes.
We're teaching. So John Gottman says, our kids are born with all the emotions and none of the skills to manage them. Right?
So true.
It's so true.
Yeah.
It is our job to teach them, to do it for them, to co-regulate.
Yes.
Okay? So we can't do that, though, if we're not regulated. So we got to check ourselves first.
Like there's a lot of that. There's a lot of checking ourselves.
A lot of checking ourselves.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but going in there and offering I understand, it's okay. And you can still set a boundary while you're offering empathy and validation. Yeah. I understand that you're mad that we're leaving the park. It is not okay for you to kick me or for you to yell at me or for you to speak.
For you to do whatever. Yeah.
I tell my kids all the time, try a different voice.
Try a different voice.
Try a different voice. I don't like the way you said that.
Yeah.
Try it again.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
Talk to me. Tell me what's going on. Don't talk to me like that, though.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. Love that. And then they'll either, to your point, calm down or even escalate.
Right. And they might escalate.
Which we talked about. Mm-hmm. So that was a question I asked in your session because I have a deeply feeling child, probably 3, let's be honest, but one in particular.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And she sometimes, I would imagine, would get more worked up sometimes when there's validation there because maybe she just like is overwhelmed or sitting in those feelings. But you brought up a good point of like, you can't expect them to just like adapt after the first time of doing it. It's like anything, right? It takes time and multiple repetitions of this practice, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I want you to think about as you're walking out of the park and her tantrum is escalating and everyone's staring at you.
Yes.
You want it to stop, right?
Yes.
You're like, knock it off.
Yes.
I'm embarrassed.
Yes. Right. Fair.
But your job right then, what you're doing is co-regulating her. If you can help calm yourself down to help calm her down and show her what happens.
Don't you feel like they feel your energy too?
Yeah.
Like if stress is high, they're like, they feel it.
Which I'm like that too as an adult. So
Good point. Good point.
100%.
You feel the energy. You feel the vibes, right?
All the time. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So empathy and validation.
Mm-hmm. And boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
And then lastly,
the boundaries part is like, honestly, kind of in a way how you set your authority a little bit without being like, right?
Yes.
Like you're the parent at the end of the day.
You're in charge. And so I talked about this a little bit. Like sometimes we have this attitude like, because I said so.
Yes.
You're going to do this because I'm in charge.
Like, I don't need to give you a reason. I'm your parent,
right.
sort of
And
thing.
you're right. You are. You are in charge. But that's not helpful in them learning what behavior is appropriate and what's not. Like when we take it from a more punitive approach that's like, if you don't do what I say, you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
They have a hard time really processing what that boundary means and why it's in place. But when I became a therapist, when I first started in my first therapist job, working with kids in foster care, it was like on day 2 or 3. And I got this little girl. I'll never forget her. She had a very sad story. Her foster mom brought her into my office, left her in, closed the door, and she immediately climbed under my desk and started screaming. And I was like, oh no, I was so green, obviously.
Right.
I'm like, oh no, you don't understand. We have things to do. I've got worksheets for you. We have emotional bingo to play. Like, what is happening right here? This is not my agenda. So I remember going to my supervisor and I was like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
I've been a therapist for 3 days. I don't know what to do.
Right.
And she said, you have to connect before they'll comply. It's connection before compliance. I will never forget that. And her voice rings in my head when I'm dealing with my kids and they're not listening.
True, though.
Yeah.
Connect before they can comply.
Yeah. And that's where the empathy and validation really comes in.
For sure.
I'm connecting with your emotional experience.
Yeah. So how do you, I feel like boundaries is also where consequences come in.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
I had a very light bulb moment the other day.
I love a good light bulb moment.
Well, I don't know. It's not a positive one, I'll say.
Oh, okay.
I'm like, oh, damn.
Very dark
We gotta,
light bulb moment.
I mean, well, not to like make it about my family and my kids specifically, but I think in general, the concept will be helpful for people to know. So there was a situation recently at soccer practices. Did you hear about this?
No.
Where teenage girls were recruiting kids with candy to like be human trafficked at Clovis schools.
No.
Swear.
Oh, that is.
Doesn't that give you the ick?
Yeah. It's so hard.
There's emails going on about it. Coaches are telling the teams like, beware, pretty much. Like there's a white van. There's girls that are teenagers. Like it's a thing. They're recruiting kids at practice. Okay. So I'm horrified. All the parents are horrified. We're like, we're obviously there hanging out with them at practice. Our kids are young still, but I had to talk to my girls and sit them down and talk about the fact that, you don't talk to a stranger, right? Mm-hmm. Annie?
What?
They go, what's a stranger?
Oh. Yeah.
They didn't even know what a stranger is. So the reason I bring up this story is big picture, boundaries, and our job is to protect our children, right? How do you, or what are maybe some ways or tactics or skills do you do that without, you want to instill the fear, but also like not terrify them from life.
You don't want to be punitive all the time.
How do you do that?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
So are you talking about
like
specifically
in life,
like
anything? Like let's say they're climbing on top of the ladder on a playground and you could, my immediate thought is don't do that. You're going to fall. Well, you know what I'm saying? Like the boundaries piece of you're trying to protect your child, but they also have to live and learn with anything, with emotions, with physical activity. Like, I mean, I guess that's a super loaded question, but like.
It is a very loaded.
You know what I mean?
Very loaded question.
But like, is there anything of the principles that you've already talked about that can apply? Or what are your thoughts? Like.
Yeah. I think that there are natural consequences that happen in life.
Right.
Based on circumstances, right? And I think those natural consequences are really important for our kids to experience. And we should allow for that to happen.
I know. That's how we learn.
Right.
I mean, come on.
100%. So we tend to do a lot of fixing for our kids. Right? Like I am going to curate your social experiences. I'm going to do your homework for you if you can't figure it out because it's too much work for me. I'm going to like manage this conflict that you're having in the classroom with your teacher. I'm going to call this kid's parent because they're saying something, right? So, so I think it's really important to have the conversations with your kids about how they can better navigate those things, but let them really learn what the natural consequences of those are. When it comes to safety, like the soccer, that is I don't even know what to say about that. I don't even know what the
right, like the
that is the moment where you instill the fear of God.
I had to instill the fear.
Listen, if you ever take candy from any stranger, I will. You're going to be grounded for a year.
Excuse me. That's like a thing. Don't take candy from a stranger.
Don't do it. Right.
Like, straight up.
Isn't this like 101?
There was no sugarcoating what I said. I literally had to instill the fear a little bit because my kids will say hi to anybody, give anybody hugs, like are very social, very loving, which is sweet. I don't want that to be lost, but also it becomes a safety issue, right?
Of course. Yeah, and you want to make sure that they're safe.
Yes. Yeah. So just explain the repercussions, essentially, is what you're saying?
Yeah, okay. I think so.
All right. So then repair. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Because I feel like in moms raising young kids, there's so much pressure to do it right.
There is so much
not
pressure.
like mess up your kid because you know what I'm saying. It's just 100%. There's a lot of pressure to feel like, and there's so much information out there, and there's so many ways that parents can be consumed with not feeling worthy or trying to rise above or keep up with or all of the things. So can you share your story of repair that you did with your talk? Because I just it really resonated with me as far as essentially what I got from it is it's never too late.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like talk through it in the moment and then maybe talk through it just as a concept in general.
Okay. So repair is, as we talk about, let's try to offer empathy, validation, and boundaries to our kids, right? In these ways that are where we're regulated and where we can nail it, right? And we are a model parent, which obviously does not happen all the time.
Right.
We screw up all the time, which is where repair comes in. Repair is the place that you can take accountability for what you may have done wrong. And own up with it to your kids, and then they begin to learn okay, how many times I don't know, maybe for you, but my parents did not apologize to me when I was a kid.
I don't remember an apology. You know
I don't remember my mom coming to me or my dad coming to me and being like,
it was a because I said so.
Totally.
Mentality.
And that was just the way that it was.
100%.
Yeah. It wasn't like, wow, I didn't handle that very well and I'm really sorry and I wish I would have done it different.
Yes, never. No. But I can remember. You know what I'm saying?
Totally.
Yeah.
But we can do that now.
Yeah.
And it's really beautiful for our kids to be able to see that, oh, wow, she doesn't have it all figured out either.
I know.
And that's
I
okay.
agree with that. Some vulnerability.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because those emotions exist.
Yeah.
You know, if my child sees me crying, it's like, oh, mommy cries or mommy gets mad or, those are real. Everyone has those feelings.
Everyone has those feelings, and it's really good for our kids to see that.
Yeah,
because it makes it, if we're trying to validate emotions here, yet we're walking around like robots and pretending like everything's all fine all the time.
Yes.
What are we teaching them? So I think the story you're referring to, I shared that a couple years ago, my dad came to me. And, as I shared, my parents didn't do a lot of repair when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But my dad came to me a couple of years ago, and he said, I just want you to know that I know I screwed up some things when you were a kid. And I wish that I knew then what I know now. Yeah. But I want you to know that I love you and that I'm sorry. And that if there's anything you ever want to talk about, I'm here. Amazing. And that for me was a moment of wow.
Yes.
Because I had already been doing this with my kids and I'm like, oh my gosh, you can do this as an adult. It's not too late.
Yeah, right?
Right. And there were some little things that I had been holding on to with my dad that literally melted.
I
was like, oh,
I know.
Thanks, Dad.
I know.
It was really powerful.
Yes.
And it was really important. And I think it's important for, parents of adult children and grandparents to know that they can circle back.
They can circle
and
back.
say, I know that this probably didn't feel very good for you. I can only imagine.
Right?
But I'm sorry.
Yeah. Gosh. The power of just owning that.
Yeah.
You know?
It's big. It's good.
'Cause we all make mistakes and we're all doing our best. To your point, we all have a lot going on. We have a lot on our plates. We're doing our best. I don't know how else to say it, right?
Yeah.
Surviving, not thriving.
We do the best. We do the best we can with what we've got.
Exactly.
So let's just all try to get a little more
Yes.
every time.
Yes.
And our best gets better.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
So great. And in your talk, you shared a really great kind of resources, books, podcasts, things that you've leaned on and really, want to recommend. Yeah. So I think that'd be great if we could share them with our listeners.
Yeah, for sure.
Right?
I
brought it.
Yeah, okay,
I
good.
folded it.
That's fine.
So we'll make it fancy.
I love Dr. Becky.
So do I.
She's the best.
She's so great.
Yes. And these concepts are, she has such a beautiful way of explaining why this is important. This is stuff that is research backed, and there's science behind it. But she's she's the language to make it so relatable.
I agree.
Which I really, really love.
I agree.
So I love Dr. Becky. I do have this handout that I gave at the women's conference, and then also at the later talk that I did with resources that have some books for parents, some really good books for kids based on kind of age ranges, that just talk about emotions and introduce them, and they're good ones to,
right?
And then
there's so many different styles of parenting. We've talked about this.
There are.
You just got to find what works for you, what works for your family, again, a lot of it, don't you feel like, obviously we are who we are because of how we were raised.
Yes.
So, you know what you do and don't want to bring to the table, right?
Yes. We all have our emotional inheritance.
Yes. Emotional inheritance.
We get that from our parents. No matter how wonderful or not wonderful they were, we carry these things on from them. And they impact us in so many ways in how we cope with stress, navigate challenges, and maintain relationships.
Right?
Yeah, so it's really important to be aware of that.
So resilience, if you wanted one thing for your child, I would feel like resilience would definitely be at the top of the list.
It's my number one.
Really?
It's my number one.
Okay, so what are your thoughts on if I said confidence? Because to me, everything you're saying, I feel like is very going hand in hand with confidence.
Yeah, confidence is important. If you're not resilient, I don't know if you can be confident.
I agree with that. The more you're talking and the more I'm learning from you, I'm like, I totally agree with that.
But that's true confidence, not a big ego. There's a difference.
Totally. I'm talking I want them to be happy with themselves and want to do something because they want to do it, not because their friend wants to do it.
Correct. Yeah.
And feel good in their skin.
Yeah. And know what true joy and connection with other people feels like.
Yes. And that goes back to resilience.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Wow.
It does.
Mind blowing. Wow. This is so great.
Thank you.
Annie, how can people learn more from you? Instagram. You have an Instagram.
I do have an Instagram.
So we'll share that.
Okay. Thank you.
Do you know the handle off the top of your head?
Yeah.
Oh, we'll share that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Annie Domingos LCSW, I think.
Perfect.
Something like that.
Great.
Okay. You'll share it.
Yes, I will.
Yeah. AnnieDomingos.com is my website.
Love it.
Yes.
So exciting.
And I'm kind of putting together some different talks about resilience that I'll be rolling out here soon. Resilience is important for every population, not just kids,
100%.
right? But I'm kind of thinking about, okay, how do I talk to stressed out moms about becoming more resilient? How do I talk to realtors? My husband's a realtor. Yes. They're burnt out. They're overwhelmed. How do we talk to realtors about resilience? How do we
resilience
talk to teachers?
Let's go there. What about resilience in marriage?
Yep.
I mean, you work with couples.
It's in the works.
Right?
A resilient relationship.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, we definitely have to have you at Mother Upload because I work with a lot of working moms in this group.
Yeah.
You want to talk about stressed, overstimulated, trying to do our best, burning the candle, but want to do right, want to do our best with what we got.
Yep.
That's your core group right there.
Absolutely.
So we definitely got to do that.
Love to.
But I just appreciate you sharing this with me. I feel like I learn so much from you every time we chat.
Thank you.
And I'm grateful that you were able to share it with our listeners.
Yes, me too.
And that they can continue the journey online.
Yes. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Annie. Okay. God, cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks, friend.
Thanks for listening. Feel free to rate and review this episode here and connect with us on Instagram if you have any thoughts, questions, or any guest suggestions. Thanks.